Is there a vegan invasion happening in the media? Well, I would say it's starting. What's happened over the last couple of weeks really is that we did a group here in Bristol did a dog meat action. So I filmed that, I put that on YouTube, and that was picked up by my local newspaper, and then it was picked up by the Daily Mirror. So that's one. The second thing that happened is that there was a piece about the Hollywood actress Angelica Houston supporting the actions against the forced swim test. That was in the local newspaper online this morning. The third thing that was happening is that I was on a 2-hour drive time programme on my local community radio station, Bristol FM. And I managed to talk about veganism quite a lot, including plugging the local Bristol Vegan Fair, talking about the sentience of pigs and other animals, and talking about the lion, you know, that we're all lions, etc. That one, and even mentioning cultural speciesism, which I think was probably a first for the commuters who are no doubt lapping it up. So, if this is happening, how can we make this happen more? I've got 7 tips that can help build the relationships and get the stories into the media or yourselves onto the media about veganism in the way that you want to tell them. It's not 100% foolproof, but I think you'll find it useful, and especially the 7th tip, which I think most people don't really understand at all. So let's talk about this whole entry into the vegan media field, or veganising the media. Number one, how do we get into the media? Well, let's talk about the drive time programme first of all. Get yourself out there, and that can be out there online, and it can be out there in actually attending events where there are going to be media people around. So with the Bristol local radio thing, what I did was I attended, they had an open day, and I thought, oh, let's just trot along to that. And so I didn't have any particular agenda apart from going along to this Bristol radio station open day, community radio. And I ended up chatting, as you do with people, chatted to the guy who was actually the marketing manager. I didn't know he was also one of the main presenters there. His name's Marcus. He seemed very friendly. He said, do you want to go on air now? And I said, okay, why not? I mean, I know I can talk. I've got opinions about everything. So yeah, why not? So next thing I knew, I was whipped into the studio. Couple of guys there, ended up chatting with them. It was all live, it was fine, it was no problems. Yeah, and that was good. So then afterwards I had another chat with Marcus, and he said, well, you know, you interested in maybe getting involved? And I'm like, yeah, why not? I think having a background in journalism and being an activist and a campaigner really helps, because of course you want to get your message out there, don't you? And here I was being offered the golden opportunity, so of course I said yes. So he said, well, you can come along, you know, there's a certain, one of the programmes that they do is a sort of a green strand. And he said, get in touch with such and such a person, and then you can shadow them, and then you can sort of like go on. The second thing is you need to be persistent, number 2. So I got in touch with the person who ran the green strand. First of all, it's like, yeah, come in, you know, let's make an appointment. So I quickly made the appointment. About a few hours later, she's like, oh no, I can't do it. I've got things going on. I'm going to have to rescind the appointment. And I was kind of left feeling a bit kind of like, oh, what do I do? I followed it up with an email saying, oh, well, if you're not, you know, too busy, when would be good for you? Completely ignored. So be persistent, number 2. I thought, I don't want to go to speak to Marcus again because it might sound a bit like off. So I sort of like let it just lie. So the persistence came in with, there was an event being held at, I found out last week, at the same place where BCFM, the local radio station, is held. So I thought, oh, I'll go along there. That sounds quite interesting. Talked to a journalist on a local paper, and also ended up chatting to Marcus, explained to him what had happened. And he said, oh, come and do, you know, come and join my drive time. So this is the persistence. You have to just sort of like keep on, really. Third thing, know your strengths. I know that I can chat. You know, I wouldn't be here if I didn't think I can chat to people spontaneously. off the cuff sometimes and sometimes not. But I know I've got a lot of opinions, particularly about veganism. So I felt relatively, you know, oh, let's just go for this. It's local community radio. Let's just go for this and see what happens. And I have to say that I think I was exceptionally fortunate in the presenter, Marcus, being incredibly generous, incredibly, like, he was very spontaneous but super professional as well, and clearly wanted to make it as easy as he could in a very sort of, I don't know, it was a really great experience, the whole thing. He'd said at the beginning he wanted it to be fun. I wanted it to be fun. Hooray. At a certain point, he was talking about, this is all on air, he was talking about things that were happening this weekend. And I thought, oh, well, what about the protest in Palestine? So I mentioned that when the music was playing. And he said, yeah, go for it. Now, I thought, well, since he had accepted that, I then thought, well, he liked, that was one yes, let's talk to him about, there was a vegan fair happening. So then I said, well, what about this vegan fair? And he's like, yeah, go for it. So I was like reading from my WhatsApp, hooray. So that all went really well. So I think that's the thing, you know, just kind of play, it's like a dance, play it by ear, but be ready to sort of like talk about your thing, you know, make your thing accessible for the presenter. So the fourth thing that I really think is great that happened with this local radio station, it was all about learning by doing. It was not theoretical. We had a quick convo, went in there in the studio, and like 2 hours of drive time. And I think it was really helpful that there was music as well. But also, again, you know, Marcus's personality was really about encouraging me as the guest to speak, which was fantastic. And the other thing was, because it was there was the live music as well, or the music, because there was the music as well, that meant that we could chat when the music was going on. So we could like suss each other out, feel each other out, you know, get a sense of, I could get a sense of him as a person, he could get a sense of me. So there was that sort of thing going on. The fifth thing I would say is be authentic. In my case, be authentic is being, you know, talking about veganism, but also we can do that in a sort of like an enjoyable, interesting way. So halfway through the show, there was Marcus sort of like said, oh, this is going to play for about 6 minutes. And he went out and said, I'm going to get a hot drink. Do you want one? Anyway, he came back and he had a little pile of biscuits in his hand. And he said, am I a pig for eating this many biscuits? And I said, well, no, you cycled here and you said you were dancing for 20 hours at a festival the other day, so you're not a pig. But the thing is, pigs are really great animals, they're sentient beings, and the biscuits have probably got milk powder in them, which is, you know, from cows, baby cows ripped away from their mums, emotional trauma. And he really liked that. This was in the silence bit. So he said, we'll do that on air. So I thought, oh, great. So we did it on air. After that, next bit of music that's playing, we're high-fiving. Well, he's high-fiving me. I'm like, oh, yeah, you know, great, amazing, fantastic. He really liked that. He's like, yeah, you know, when people are sort of like pleasantly having different views, which is what we were doing then, you know, he was being like, oh, pigs, you know, and then we got into, oh, lions, you know, and are you saying our ancestors, you know, who mainly were hunting, you know, they're wrong, blah, blah, blah. And I'm saying, do we live our lives by, you know, what lions do? All very amicable, but he loved that. So it's like the next bit of music, more high fives, hooray. And I think that's the bit where he's like, you know, after that I managed to drag in this phrase cultural speciesism, which I only learnt a few days before, which I thought, thanks Roger Yates, thanks Roger Yates for introducing me to the concept of cultural speciesism. I just think it sounds more understandable to the ordinary punter than speciesism on its own. I think it just makes it sound better and more understandable. So dragged that into the conversation and it all went swimmingly. The sixth point is enjoy what you're doing. By this point, you know, me and Marcus were like a team. We're like a little team, we're discussing things on air and off air, and he's like, oh, I like that, and then we do it on air, and it was just like fun. It was just really fun. It was spontaneous, lots of ideas coming out. So I think, you know, be your authentic self in a nice way. Yeah, the whole 2 hours were hugely fun and hugely enjoyable. And then I was invited back. You know, he's like, do you want to come next week? I'm like, yes, grab. Of course I'm going to come back next week. Hooray! Fantastic. The 7th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The final important thing, which is highlighted by that do you want to come back next week? The media is always hungry for content. In vegan land, it may not seem that way. It may not seem that way at all, that the media is hungry for content. But I tell you what, the media is always hungry for content. And Marcus inviting me back for the next week shows that at least partly they are hungry for the sort of content that I was able to deliver. The vegan activist content with a side helping of Palestine. And we also talked about economics and the state of the world and the whole austerity thing. And it may take a while, this is the thing, it may take a while to build up these relationships with journalists who've got all sorts of other priorities going on, including writing a gazillion stories, 2 deadlines every single day that they work, interviewing people, blah, 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 blah. And this is something to remember. Now let's go back on those 7 points. First point to remember is get out and about, whether that's online or in real life. Just get out and about, talk to people, meet journalists, meet the press, and just see what you can see. Second thing is be persistent. These media apples are not necessarily going to fall instantly into your lap. Another journalist that I've been sending messages to, basically on WhatsApp, for months and months and months and months and months. He was the one that picked up the story about the dog meat, ran it in the local press, and then that was taken up by the Mirror. I've been messaging him for months, okay? And it was only today, this morning, when I messaged him about something else. He'd also just put the Angelica Houston story, the one where the Hollywood actress is talking about the forced swim test. Is happening in our local university, and she's saying it's the wrong thing to do. He ran that as a story. So I was asking him, when is that going to go into the print press rather than the online press? And to my astonishment, he then suddenly, I got this huge message from him saying that he's practically vegan. I mean, he eats cheese, hey ho, his wife is vegan. And then saying he's run loads and loads of stories. I haven't checked them all, but he's gave me all the links, about 6 of them, about veganism, and really explaining a lot more about where he was coming from. And this is after months and months and months of me basically being in touch, this and that. And I thought, wow, it's another result. How great is that? 3, you've got to know your strengths. Your strengths maybe... Well, your strengths will be talking about veganism and in certain ways, and you've got to find out that sort of like niche of people that you can talk to in the media. And for me, the sound of live radio, it just seemed like, yeah, why not? For a lot of people, that's not something they will ever want to do. It's their worst nightmare. But if you've got an oh yeah feeling about something, go for it. The 4th thing is learn by doing, whether it's going out and about or sitting in a radio station. Maybe you feel like it's something you can do, maybe you feel like it's something you can't, but just go and do it. You will never get results in any shape or form unless you go and do stuff. Learning by doing, I think, is just amazing. So the 5th thing is get stuck in, take a risk, go for it. I didn't particularly feel like yesterday, like going down to the radio station and doing something that may have been a bit like, I'd never done it before, so who knew? I was in a bit of a down mood. I'd got an awful lot of really negative pushback from a certain individual about the dog meat story. Very, very hostile, personal attacks, etc., etc. And I was still feeling a little bit down from that. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go out anyway. What's the worst that can happen? And then I had a great time. My mood was boosted and it was just a fantastic thing. Spoke up for the animals. Terrific. The 6th thing is, remember to enjoy it, whatever it is, whether it's the dog meat video, filming that, I enjoyed it. Whether it's the 2 hours on drive time, I really enjoyed that. It was lovely talking with Marcus. It was just like chatting to a friend. And the 7th thing is, Remember what the seventh thing is? That is, the media is always hungry for stories. And we need to remember that. The media are not doing us a favour by publishing something about our action or whatever. It's a mutually supportive thing. It's a mutually beneficial thing. And it may take a while to make that happen. If you keep on and keep on and keep on experimenting, it will happen. So, this is how you can do your own bits of vegan media invasion. And it may take time, and you might get something happening straight away, or it may take a longer time, but go for it. It's always worth it. You take care.